Well, good morning. My name's Dr. Chidi, and it's a privilege for me to be here. We're going to be talking about something that I think is relevant to absolutely everyone here today. Now, if we go back to the year 2012, there was a small sporting event in London. I don't know if you remember that. And it was a wonderful success, and we all had a great time. I remember when Jessica Ennis came out, and she was just about to do her first event, the hurdles. When I saw her six-pack, I thought, my goodness, something special is about to happen. And actually, something did happen. She won the 110 hurdles in the best time, a time that would have actually won the individual event. So she did very well. I don't know if you can see that with the light there, but I wonder if we can do something about the light. So she did it in a fantastic time. There were some other great people as well. This gentleman, he won every Paralympic race between 400 meters and the marathon. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I was also privileged to be in the tennis court to see Andy Murray convert from a miserable Scottishman to a wonderful Britishman in one day. Wonderful, absolutely fabulous. And some of the foreigners did quite well too. Yeah. Usain Bolt didn't do too bad, but I want to take you back to a time that maybe before you were born, probably yes, before you were born. And this is a gentleman by the name of Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, in the Seoul Olympics, he broke the world record in 100 meters, beating Carl Lewis. Everybody was fascinated by it. I remember, because it was in Seoul, I had to be up very late at night to watch this race. And everybody was amazed. How could this guy break the record in such a fantastic time, 9.79 seconds? But the next day we found out that he was busted because he'd been taking steroids. Some of you may remember this lady, Marion Jones. Marion Jones, 2000 games, the darling of the games. She won so many gold medals. But again, we found out that she took drugs. Lance Armstrong overcame testicular cancer, won the Tour de France 7 times. How did he do it? He did it by taking drugs. I always ask myself, why do they take all of these risks, these athletes? And this little poem brings some ideas to why. It says, possibilities with focus, dedication, and steroids, men can achieve impossible dreams, like breaking a world record or growing their own breasts. That's a side effect of taking steroids, by the way, just in case any of you want to do that. I would not do that. But now my question is this. What about you? What about you? Do you abuse steroids? Or you might say, well, I'm not an athlete. I'm not looking to go to the Olympics. Why would you ask me such a question? Well, the truth is all of us abuse steroids every time we're worried. Every time we're fearful. Every time we're stressed or angry. Anytime you have any of those emotions, your body is releasing steroids into your system. We call this stress, but what is stress? Stress is just the body's reaction to a change in the environment, really. We have to have some level of stress just to stay awake. But let's look at actually what goes on in the body, in the brain, when we're under stress. Have a look at this. It doesn't actually show up there. That's all right. So if you can see, in the middle of the brain, there's an area called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus governs everything in your body that you don't even think about. Your breathing, your temperature, your blood pressure, everything. But when you're under stress, that area of the brain sends a chemical to your pituitary gland, and that pituitary gland then sends a chemical in your blood to an area just above your kidneys called the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland releases cortisol and adrenaline into the system. That happens every time you are stressed. So let's go back to the 100-meter line. You're up against Usain Bolt, right? You can imagine that, can't you? Yes? Yes? You don't look confident. Okay, so you're up against Usain Bolt at the 100 meters line. What's happening to your body? Your heart's going to beat faster and stronger because your body's releasing all of these hormones. Your blood pressure rises, getting yourself ready for this activity. We call this the fight or flight response. That's your sympathetic nervous system causing your body to get prepared for activity. And it also gets prepared for injury. And your concentration levels go up. And if all is going according to plan, the race is won and everything's fantastic. But most of us are not looking to be in the 100 meters final. Some of you may, but most of us are not. But we still get that stress response, don't we? And this is what it really looks like. You know, when we're stressed, this is how it comes out. But actually, everything that happened on the start line of the 100 meters in your body happens when you're stressed. So all of that blood pressure, blood flow, all of that is getting you ready for fighting or flighting, that happens just when you're stressed and you're not doing anything. So obviously, your blood pressure is going to rise. You know, we aim for the blood pressure of 110/60. I always say that the normal figure that we get, 120/80, is the maximum that your blood pressure should be. You should really be aiming for 110/60. But, you know, we all get stressed for different things, don't we? I get stressed for things that you may not get stressed about. You get stressed about things I may not get stressed about. But, you know, different things make people to get stressed, right? And sometimes it's the tiny things that get us stressed. And, you know, it's not actually that good for us. We call it often the silent killer. That's what stress is. Often you don't know you've got it. Some of you, you might have a few symptoms like any of these, headaches, palpitation, blurred vision, sometimes nosebleeds. These also correspond with high blood pressure, but often you don't have any of these symptoms, but you are still suffering from stress. And the problem is that even if you don't have any of those symptoms, you're putting yourself at risk for all of these problems. Stress causes all of these problems. When we said that your body releases cortisol or steroids, well, you know what? Steroids wipe out your immune system. So every time you have a big argument with somebody, your immune system gets wiped out. What does that mean? It means that your white blood cells in your body that are designed to pick out and destroy all the cancer cells in your body, because we all get cancer. We've all got cancer cells. But if you wipe out your immune system, those cells continue to grow because your white blood cells don't identify them, they don't destroy them. Obviously, stress can lead to anxiety and depression. What about Alzheimer's? People are worried about Alzheimer's disease. One of the biggest key factors for getting Alzheimer's disease is major stress throughout the middle of your life. That is one of the key factors. Also diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, that can lead to Alzheimer's too, but stress is a major factor. Alzheimer's is a lifestyle disease. Irrespective of your genes, it's a lifestyle disease. And at the bottom there, you can see these diseases, IBS and IBD. That stands for irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease. So we're dealing with your bowels. And it takes me back to when I was first a medical student, the first science paper I read was about a man who did something that most of us would never do. He went out to Africa. He went and caught these mandarin monkeys. Mandarin monkeys are the ones with the red, white, and blue noses. And what he did, he took a little telescope and he looked up all their back passages, looked at their colons. Now, you know, I told you, most of us would not do that. You know, even if you're a scientist, you're not going to do that. So he looked at their colons and he found that all of their colons looked normal. They just looked perfectly pink and healthy and normal. Then he went back to America and he looked in the zoos or animal prisons, whatever you want to call them. And he got those same mandarin monkeys and he looked up their colons and he found that they were all ulcerated and bleeding. They had inflammatory bowel disease. Now, why did they have that? They were behind bars, they were under stress. That caused it. Also, their diet was changed. They had a natural diet in the wild, but in in captivity, they were given all kinds of things, and that made their bowels more ulcerated. So stress and other things can cause a myriad of problems. Now, if you know anybody with high blood pressure, often high blood pressure is caused by stress. And when you go to your doctor, none of you obviously, but maybe later in life when somebody says, oh, you have a bit of high blood pressure, your doctor will say to you, okay, take this pill, it will bring your blood pressure down, which is good, but it doesn't deal with any of those issues. The stress that is in your bodies that is predisposing you for cancer and Alzheimer's and inflammatory bowel disease, that's not being dealt with. So what I do in most of my practice, which is lifestyle medicine, is try to get to the root cause of the problem, stop it, and that reverses the problem. Because those are definitely serious results. Another serious result of stress is, of course, heart disease. Now, heart disease is just where your arteries start to get clogged up. Now, why should that happen when you're under stress? When you're under stress, we've said your blood pressure rises. If your blood pressure rises, your arteries get stretched. And when they get stretched, they cause these little tears in the interior layer of your artery. And those little tears become places where fat and cholesterol can deposit themselves. And when one little piece deposits themselves, it attracts more until you get this big plaque, and then you have what we call heart disease. Okay. Another result is obviously a stroke. When that plaque becomes too big and it blocks off the whole artery, that means that part of your brain or part of any part of your body doesn't get enough blood, and therefore it starts to die. Kidney disease, most people with kidney disease have it because either they've had high blood pressure or diabetes. The best way to avoid kidney problems is to look after your blood pressure and avoid diabetes, and we'll be talking about that throughout the week. So stress makes everything worse. There is no illness that stress improves. It makes absolutely every disease worse, and in fact, for many diseases, it's actually the trigger factor for all of them. But I want to show you this. 2009, a lady called Elizabeth Blackburn, she got a Nobel Prize. And the Nobel Prize was to show that actually your stress levels and how you deal with it affects even your DNA. So she took a lot of stressed young women. It wasn't difficult to find them. Got a lot of stressed young women and noticed that, they could be in the same kind of environment that's causing them stress, but some of them would say, you know what, okay, I've got this environment, but, I'm going to deal with it. And some of the women would say, oh, I can't deal with this. This is too much for me. The ones who got really stressed about their situation, those little ends, those telomeres in the DNA became very short. The ones who were more relaxed about their condition, even though they were in the same condition as the other person, those telomeres, part of their DNA, got longer. And the truth is, if your telomeres get longer, you live longer. If your telomeres get shorter, you don't live so long. And you can die of anything, cancer, heart disease, whatever. So it just shows that it's not actually the environment that you're in, it's how you respond to it. You can be in the worst possible environment, but if you're able to say, you know what, I'm sure God's got a plan, that can take away your stress levels, if you believe that. In fact, in Matthew, Jesus says, who of you by worrying can add a day to your life or a cubit to your length, cubit to your height? It's not possible. In fact, you take away your life by worrying. So Elizabeth Blackburn got a Nobel Prize just for explaining Matthew 6:27. You just don't know all the treasures that are in the Bible. We should read the Bible a little bit more carefully. Maybe you get a Nobel Prize too, who knows? Under stress, we do all sorts of weird things, don't we? Under stress, I say it's no coincidence that desserts is stress spelt backwards. Because when you're stressed, you eat more sweet things. When you're stressed, you tend, I'm stressed, I need to eat some cake, I need to eat some ice cream, That's just how we are sometimes. And stress actually causes us to do things that are not so good and are a bit risky for our health. We get angry. We drive worse. We speak badly to each other. So it's very important that we learn to get a hold of stress. I love this definition of disease: an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of health laws. That is the definition of disease. So, for example, blood pressure is not actually the disease. Blood pressure is your body saying, you know what, I need to give more pressure to your system. Why would it do that? The truth is that your body knows exactly the type of blood pressure you need. So if my blood pressure is sky high, 200 over 100, there's a reason for it. The reason may be that the arteries in my system have become very narrow because of stress, because of heart disease. And so in order to get the same amount of blood to my brain, the same amount of blood to my heart, more blood has to go through a tiny, narrow aperture. And in order to do that, your blood pressure has to go up. Okay? So what we want to do is get to the root cause of the problem, the root cause of the disease, reverse it, start to open up those arteries, and that will take away the need for high blood pressure. Simply having a drug to lower the blood pressure doesn't get to the root cause of the disease. Okay? So, how do we reverse stress? This is one of the most simple things you can do. When you find yourself in a very stressed out environment, just take time out. Take 10 minutes out and just breathe slowly. By breathing slowly, what you are doing is activating what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the nervous system that slows everything down, allows you to think. Just by breathing slowly, it shuts off the sympathetic nervous system, the one that's getting you ready for that 100-meter run. Your blood pressure comes down, you start to feel calmer. At work, you find people going out every minute for a cigarette break, right? They go out for a cigarette, have to go out of the building these days, which is good. I always say, why don't you just go out for a clean air break? Go out, breathe for 10 minutes, very slowly, and come back. Whatever the situation, it helps. Another thing you can do is avoid all stimulants. Caffeine in coffee and Coke and all those things, alcohol, tobacco, sugar, and obviously any recreational drugs. All of these things increase your stress levels. They make your body more prone to be more stressed. And there's other things that can stimulate as well, not so much the things you take in your mouth. What about the things you take in your eyes and ears? The things that you watch on TV? You know, if you ever watch the news, how much of it is good news? It's all bad news. You know, just watching the news for a week can get you stressed. It is so negative. Everything's negative. So rather listen to things that are positive and uplifting. Now here's something I recommend to everybody. Eat a healthy, plant-rich diet. Diets that are high in salt and sugar and fat and animal protein, they predispose you to be more stressed. Diets rich in plant-based material help lower your stress levels. Now this, definitely you have to do this. And where you are now and at your stage of life, if you can get into the habit of exercising daily, even if it's just walking for an hour, you're making a fantastic habit for the future. You don't have to go to the gym, just walking, that's good enough. And what about this? Rest. 6 to 8 hours of sleep each night, 1 day off a week, that's our wonderful Sabbath. And obviously aim, I say, especially if you're working every 3 months, just to have a weekend away. And when I say have a Sabbath, I mean have a Sabbath. Often our Sabbaths are just congested with all kinds of things. You get home and you're just stressed. Was that a Sabbath day? No. You know, sometimes people want to make you do or ask you to do this one and that one and that one, come to this meeting and that meeting. Give yourself a break, please. Get yourself into some good habits. Fabulous. And what about this? This is very interesting. Think about things that are positive and peaceful. Ask yourself, what am I thinking about these days? What do I spend most of my time thinking about? Am I thinking about things that make me stressed? Or am I thinking about things that make me relaxed? This is what Mahatma Gandhi said: your beliefs become thoughts, your thoughts become words, your words become actions, actions become habits, habits become your character, and your character determines your destiny. But it all starts in the mind. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about what's hurt you, or are you thinking about what's helped you? The Bible says it even better. It says, for as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So what you are thinking about determines the sort of person you will become. It is very important that we start to think about positive things. Now, if I was going to give you an antidote, a prescription for stress relief, I can't think of a better one than is found in Philippians 4, verses 4 to 8. It is by far the best prescription, and it says this: rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. That means rejoice always, whether things are going well for you or whether things are not going so well for you. Still rejoice. Because you know what? Even when you think things are not going well for you, God is still in control. And he has a great plan. Just because you don't feel it right now doesn't mean he's not working. So rejoice even when you see things going wrong. I hear people say to me all the time, I wish I had a better job and made more money. Thank God you've got a job. Thank God you've got a job. Let's stop focusing on everything that we don't have and start focusing on some of the things that we do have. I was just saying to the adults, there are people literally dying to be like you. Most of the world would love to live like you. That's why they're killing themselves trying to get across the sea, the oceans, to live here, because of the gifts and all the abundant things that we have. Let's remember to thank God about these things. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is near. That means we have to express gentleness, love, kindness. By expressing it, actually, it doesn't just benefit the person we're expressing it to. It helps us too. It lowers our stress levels. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. There's no point sitting being scared and fearful and anxious about it. Talk to God about it. I always say, especially for young people, often we don't talk to God enough. Often we don't tell, did I say we? Am I a young person? I don't know about that. Well, you as young people may not talk to God enough, may not tell God your deepest desires, your deepest fears. Maybe you think he's going to judge you. Well, he won't. He can't. He wants to hear everything. And it says, and the peace of God which surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever things are lovely or of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Think about the positive. Think about the great things in your life. You may be going through difficulty now, but think about the blessings God has given you. Think about the future that God may have for you. By doing that, you will have peace. But I say to you, in order to get peace, you really have to look back and let go and forgive. There are people who may have done things to you that, is not fair and is not just. We have to learn how to forgive if we're ever going to have peace. And really, at the core of forgiveness has to be love. We have to start learning to love ourselves, love God, and to love others. This wonderful text, is the heart of the entire Bible. God loved us so much that he gave everything for us. And when people talk to me about grace, trying to define grace, there's many ways to define grace. God's riches at Christ's expense, that's very good. But I like to say grace actually is power. You see, because God has been so gracious to me, I now have the power to live the life he wants me to live. Because it takes power. Because when somebody does something wrong to you, I want to retaliate. But because God has been gracious to me, you know what? I have the power to say, you know what? I forgive you. I'm moving on. I can't be held by you holding me back. That's what grace is all about. It gives us the power to live the life that God wants us to live. Because the truth is we've all been loved. Whosoever, that means all of us. We are all loved by God. There is not one person who is not loved. Because I think some of us forget what Christ has done for us. I remember when I was a teenager, I was raised up in the church, and I guess I learned everything that we shouldn't do, as most Adventists, learnt the things that we can't eat and can't go and can't do this. But when I actually fully understood who Christ was and what he'd done for me, it completely changed my life. I realized that no matter who I am, with all my difficulties and all my imperfections, Jesus died and gave his life for me. My place is guaranteed in his kingdom, not because of anything good that I've done. So that then leaves me and frees me to live for him. It's a wonderful privilege that we have. We have been loved. We don't have to live lives of stress. Somebody comes into your life, maybe in your family, maybe at school, college, or work. They have no power over you. Because you are responsible for your response. That's what responsibility is, your ability to respond to any environment. It comes from us. It doesn't come from anybody else. Nobody has power over you. And that really is the key to overcoming stress. Now, tomorrow I'm going to be talking about something slightly different. It is entitled, If You Want to Lose Weight. There are lots of quick weight loss schemes out there, and most of them don't work. And many of us, sometimes we think that I don't need to lose weight, but many of us have lots of fat on the inside, even if it doesn't show on the outside. So we're going to show you how to do it in a healthy manner. Also, we're going to talk about how can you prevent and reverse diabetes. Okay? That's what we're going to deal with tomorrow. But if you have any questions right now, feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer. Any questions? No questions? Good, I can go. Okay, there's a question over there. I don't know if we can get a mic to people. No mics. Okay, all right. You have to use your loud voice.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to ask, how does being on steroids, because I'm on steroids for a particular illness, how does being on that long term affect because that obviously affects your adrenaline gland?
Yes.
So what impact does that have on your stress level?
Yeah, that's important. And steroids, if you're on them long term, they always have side effects. I mean, you've probably noticed some of the side effects. May it be skin problems or whatever. What it can actually do to your adrenal gland is actually suppress your adrenal gland, because your adrenal gland wants to release steroids. But if you have lots of steroids in your system anyway, your adrenal gland says, okay, I don't need to do any work, so I'm just going to slow down a bit. So depending on what the condition is, and many of the conditions, I'm guessing it may be an autoimmune problem, okay? And we're going to be dealing with autoimmune problems on Thursday. So there are ways that you can get around using steroids and actually reverse the autoimmune problem. We're going to deal with that on Thursday, that's right. But yes, it has lots of effects. And that's why, sometimes you have to come off the steroids or reduce the steroids and then raise it up again. But there are ways around that, that you don't have to use such a high dose of steroids. Yeah. It would be, because that's all mediated through both cortisol and adrenaline. So sometimes you might find yourself a bit stressed or a bit having palpitations or things like that. when you really shouldn't have. And that is down to the fact that you may have a lot of steroid in your system. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you. No? Have I written any books? That's a very good point. I have this book coming out, Life Colors, which is, I didn't pay him to ask that question. I have this book coming out, Life Colors, which deals with the 9 chronic diseases, really. So each color represents a different disease. Purple is diabetes, black is stress, green is cancer, blue is obesity, red, high blood pressure. So that book is coming out. It should be this year. I keep saying that, but it should be this year. Okay, thank you. Yes?
So, you know how people say stress is a silent killer?
Yes.
Are there, well, how true is that? Are there actually any real signs of stress, or is it actually a silent killer?
Okay, I thought I spoke about that today. Did I not? Let me go back. I'll go back. It is a silent killer. It definitely is, and that's what let's go. That was my graphic for it. The silent killer. Sorry, can we put it back on? Okay. Well, anyway, stress is a silent killer. But you can get small, yeah, there you go. You can get small symptoms like headaches, palpitations, blurred vision, just feeling anxious. Those things can happen. But as we said, they actually mask bigger problems. Stress masks all of these problems that you're predisposed to if you're under stress a lot. I'll give you an example, actually. I'm going to be talking about it on Thursday, but it doesn't matter if I repeat it. There's a study that was done a few years ago that showed that African American women who thought that they were being racially stereotyped increased their risk of breast cancer by 300%. So there you go. So you're somebody, you feel you're being racially stereotyped, so something's being done against you. The level of stress that builds up in you actually leads to your quickening death. Doesn't seem fair, does it? So we have to learn how to overcome those stresses. So that even if you're in a situation where you feel that somebody's doing you wrong, you know how to deal internally with the issue. Okay, and we're going to be dealing with that throughout the week. Any other questions? No? Okay. Yes. Yes.
I know you mentioned something about Alzheimer's and how it is a lifestyle.
Yes. Yes.
What is, because we've had this discussion before where I work, the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's. Is there, because I know dementia is that the holistic thing, or is it the other way around?
Okay.
The holistic.
So the question, great, good question. So the question is, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? Because I was saying Alzheimer's is a lifestyle disease. So dementia covers all the different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is one of them. So for example, there is one type of dementia. Alzheimer's takes up about 80% of dementia, but there is one that takes up about 15%. It's called multi-infarct dementia. And what that means is exactly what it says. It means you have these little infarcts in your brain, little bleeds, little strokes, mini strokes in your brain, and every time you have them, some of your cognition, some of your memory goes away. We call that multi-infarct dementia. Actually, for Alzheimer's disease, it is still related to that, because we know if you have high blood pressure, you have loads of strokes, it increases your risk of Alzheimer's. So we know it's a lifestyle problem. And often people, if you have Alzheimer's in the family, you start to worry, well, am I going to get Alzheimer's? They are doing tests now for genetics to see whether you have the genetic code which could predispose you to Alzheimer's. The good news is, even if you have the gene, your lifestyle can override the gene. Our lifestyles are more powerful than our genetics for those kind of diseases. So there is something that we call epigenetics. That means above the genes. So you can even have, and you'll find out on Thursday, you can even have the gene for certain breast cancers, but your lifestyle can override it. So it's a fascinating thing, and that's why I do lifestyle medicine. It is really fascinating. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So just so everybody could hear, so your mother gets stressed. I'm sure you have nothing to do with it, right? Okay. Your mother gets stressed and she's on that tablet labetalol, and yes, it brings the blood pressure down, but it causes headaches. That's right. So labetalol, it's what we call a beta blocker. So we talked about adrenaline causes all the blood pressure to go up and all that. Well, a beta blocker blocks the adrenaline. But the unfortunate thing is you have these receptors in your brain as well as in your heart. So it can cause all kinds of side effects like headaches. The best thing to do, and on Friday we're going to be dealing with it, how to naturally bring your blood pressure down and then come off your medication. That is something that I do quite a lot. So how can you, with lifestyle changes, bring your blood pressure down naturally and then be free of medication? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? And it's really, really positive. So make sure you're here on Friday.